Hey, how's it going? This is Danny from Made of Metal, aka Britain's strongest drummer, and welcome to episode 6 of Desert Island Riffs. Yeah, there have been 6 of these already, more to come as well. This episode we have a chat with 2022's Britain's strongest man, under 80 kilograms, Mr. Tommy Chivers. Now, this chat was recorded prior to the 2023 competition, so we do some chat about the upcoming, at time of recording, competition. We do some speculation. Hopefully it hasn't aged too poorly, because if you didn't know by now, Tommy actually didn't manage to hold on to the title. He tweaked his back quite early in the competition, but still managed to land in 5th place, which in that competition, with those sorts of athletes that were there on the day, is pretty incredible. As for the chat itself, we had a really nice chat. Tommy was actually my first ever strongman coach, so it was nice to catch up with him, learn about how he got started in the sport a little bit, talk about his music choices. In terms of the recording itself, you may notice a marked change in the audio quality from my end when we start talking about the songs, and that is because, as has become tradition in recording these podcasts, make some huge technical oversight that I have to deal with after the recording. And this time Tommy had the patience of an absolute saint, because about 20 minutes into the recording, the camera that I was using as a webcam and also as a microphone lost all charge and just completely died. I spent about 20 minutes trying to work out how to get it working. I didn't manage it. I couldn't get back into the podcast studio that I use. The internet crashed. All the while Tommy's just sat there waiting for me to get things sorted. There's a reason why I think some of the biggest podcasts have actual producers. As I say, Tommy had the patience of a saint. We did manage to sort it out, but I had to revert to using the laptop microphone. So hopefully the change in audio quality isn't too bad, and still managed to salvage quite an enjoyable chat. In terms of music, we couldn't be more polar opposites in the sorts of music we generally listen to. I don't think the 5 songs that Tommy chose I'd never heard of, not one of them. So yeah, it was good for me to listen to some different stuff. The collaborative Spotify playlist, that's becoming really varied right now. Even though music tastes couldn't be much more contrasting, I think there are some common threads which we talk about a little bit. As I say, that again, this podcast for me is just proving a nice musical education for me. You know, I've talked before about 25-year-old me being an elitist gatekeeper, and I'm a lot more open these days, so it's cool. I'm really appreciating having all these different tracks, all these different styles thrown at me. But yeah, so sit back and enjoy this 6th episode of Desert Island Riffs with the one, the only Tommy Chivers, and I will be back at the end of the podcast with another little music recommendation, so enjoy. Alright, I am here with as we sit here and record, the reigning Britain's strongest man, under 80 kilograms, Tommy Chivers. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
We are, 4 days away, 5 days away?
Not even that. What were we? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days.
So you are deep into making weight for this competition. How are you feeling?
I'm sick of water, mate. Yesterday wasn't too bad, but today, honestly, it's every 20 minutes, half hour. Yeah, so apologies if I have to shoot off.
No, that's all right. Because you don't have to put, or you haven't had to put yourself through this sort of stuff too often over the past couple of years. So is it a bit of a shock to the system now that you're at this point and you've actually got to knuckle down, drink the water, make the weight?
It isn't. I think I get anxious at the thought of doing it, and then once I start, I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I've been here before. It's all good. So yeah, it's all good. Weight's on point. I don't think I'll be needing to do anything drastic in the baths or anything like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I had my first ever weigh-in where I had to get completely starkers at the start of the year.
Oh no.
It was, I think I turned up. It was the UKNS Southern Qualifier. It was down in Southampton at Barbell Division. And the scales they were using to weigh everybody were proper calibrated scales that are obviously used for plates. So what that meant was the number didn't settle on the display because it was obviously used to completely static weights. So the digits kept fluctuating, and I was kind of between, what was it, 0.03 and they needed to see 0.79 flash up for a brief second before they'd let me weigh in. Yeah. And I think it was there for about an hour, spitting and on the assault bike, and so you're not anticipating having to do any of that.
No, right. So touch wood. I've always made weight either bang on 80 or 79.8 or 79.9. Like it's always been banging. The one thing that's annoyed me, it doesn't happen now at these sort of level comps, but especially in your novice years and when you first start, you're making sure you're on point with your weight. You get there and it's on carpet on like a wonky floor, and you're like, oh man, you step on it and it's like 78.2, and you're like, man, I could have just not cut. Like, so that's frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily we're at a stage now where comps are strict, proper scales. Everyone, there's no allowances. I've had some comps in the past where there's been some how do we say it, dubious weigh-ins for people who come in looking very, very big the next day.
Yeah, I think one of the first competitions I did, and I because it was the first competition, I kind of thought it was standard. There was a 0.5, 500 gram, like leeway.
Okay.
So you could turn up 80.5 and it would have been fine.
I've never really understood the allowances. I'm like, you're either under the weight, at the weight, or you're over it.
Yeah. So how are you feeling in terms of the competition itself? Because obviously all the training's done and dusted at this point. You posted that blistering farmers video. Everything else moving well? I mean, don't you like this is going to go out way after the competition, so you can give away as much or as little as you're willing to, but no one's going to hear it until
it's done and dusted. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I could be talking to you as the champ. I could also be talking to you as a deflated former champion. But no, overall, I'm looking forward to it. From the off, I wasn't overly excited about the events. Like initially looking at it, I was like, okay, there's 2 events there I do not like. There's 2 that I don't mind, and there's 2 that I like. So I've got to put some serious work in. Anything sandbag related, I generally don't like. If it's for short distance, it's fine. Like last year's sandbag low to drag, that was fine. I'd sound quite dangerous over short distances. Anything is then for distance. Yeah, not good. I mean, that's the event that let me down at England's before Brits last year. And I shouldn't have fluffed that sandbag, but maybe that was just lack of competing. There wasn't really any other excuse for it other than that. It was just a silly mistake with where I stood. Like, the power was there all day long. Like, the bag I was missing was the lightest bag. I think what it was on the day was...
Was this the bag?
The bag toss at Chaos for England's. Because I went into that winning. I was in the lead. And then I was like, okay, I'll just get this one out of the way and I've got my bad event to go and I'll just see if I can just hold on to that podium. Like, I thought first is going to be unrealistic, but if I can get second or third, that would be a good little comeback comp and then on to Brits. And I think what it was, because I was struggling with the heaviest bag in training, I was standing closer to the bar. So when that first bag missed, I just panicked and was like standing near it because that was where I was missing bags in training. I stood close to it. And then all I heard, I don't normally hear people, but I heard Shane and Flash shouting, move forward, like get away. And I was like, fuck, what we're doing? As soon as I took a couple of steps forward, the bag just flew over. And I was like, man. And at that point, I was just like, I've got to just get all these bags over now to stand any chance. And by the time I got to that heavy bag, I was spent. And then I went into that last event being like, I just need to just get through this comp now. Like, podium's out of the question now because I know I'm not going to perform in this next event. So it was at that point I was like, I just want to get it done. And I was just happy to qualify for Brits because when I'd seen those events, I was like, that's a good set of events for me. There's one that's going to let me down potentially, but if I work at it, it will be good. And that comp just went perfect for me.
Yeah, didn't it just? So that bag toss for England's, I think that caught a few people out. I know it caught a few people out because I think I was very lucky. I only got the first bag over, but I got that first bag over quite quickly. And I know Lewis in particular had a really rough time. I think he got the first bag over.
Yeah, we were first and second going into that.
And yeah, he got the first bag over, but he got it on his second attempt and yeah, was just kind of stuck there, I think. So I ended up beating him on that event, and my bag toss is very poor. And yeah, so I think that sort of devastated Lewis. But yeah, as you say, you did the job, you qualified for Brits and absolutely smashed it. So yeah, we're coming for back to back.
That's the plan. I mean, that's what I've been writing down every day in my book. I'm a big believer in like visualization and manifestation, so I think there's no harm in trying that stuff and doing it because what's the harm in it? Do you know what I mean?
Do you keep like a journal or something?
I don't journal. That's one thing I don't really do. But it's just a book I've got, just for writing bits and bobs in. But yeah, I mean, you can't see I can show you. The viewers can't see it, but look, here we go. That's the same thing getting written down like every day, just over and over and over.
Man, that's like a secondary school punishment, but you're doing it.
Yeah, it's like Bart Simpson on the.
You're doing it for to manifest that win.
I mean, it's worked in the past, so we'll see how we go. But no, it's. I'll be honest. The events, they're not in my favour. You know, it's not like last year where I was like, I like all these events. I think I can do well at it. Yeah, this year's the polar opposite. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to go there and attack it and give it my best, you know?
No, that's what we want. That's what we want from everyone that's competing. So yeah, like, in terms of competitions, you're not shy of leaving gaps. So you competed at OSG 2019 and then not again until England's Strongest Man 2021. Mm-hmm. And then you've not competed again since Brits last year. Like, do you feel like you get back into that competition mode pretty easily, pretty quickly?
Yeah, I think it stems from doing athletics as a kid and playing a lot of sports like football, hockey. I dabbled in rugby for a bit. But yeah, I feel like I perform better on the day than I do in training. I think, not that it's a bad thing, I think I just pick apart everything in training and then you're constantly analysing and you constantly feel like you're not doing well enough. And I try not to look at what others are doing too much. I keep up with some people just if they pop up on social media, I'll watch it, but I won't search people. I won't go out of my way to look at what people are doing because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You can only do what you can do on the day. But yeah, I find someone said the other day they're like a performing monkey, and I suppose it is a bit like that. I can just turn up on the day, and everything just feels like second nature. And looking at past records in comps, I've always performed better on the day than I have in training. You know, across the board at each event. I've had the odd little mistake, you know, like with the bag toss or whatever, but they don't seem to happen often. So I go into the day with quite a lot of confidence, yeah.
So were you confident when you went into your first ever strongman competition? What was your first ever strongman competition?
Right, well, my first, it was called a strongman competition, but after I did it, I said I wouldn't class that as real strongman because it was quite light. It was almost like a mix between CrossFit and strongman. it definitely it had strongman implements in there. We had yoke, we had farmers, we had a deadlift medley. There was a loading race, but it was all so light and it was so many reps and rounds. It just felt like it was a CrossFit or strongman inspired CrossFit event. And that was when I was doing CrossFit, but I fancied something different and a bit heavier. And I just went in for a bit of a laugh really, and ended up winning it. They didn't have your standard weight classes. They had like lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight. So it was a bit of an odd category to go into.
Okay.
But yeah, I won the lightweight category, and then that gave me the bug to actually try some real strongman. And I think my first one was down at what was Rob Frampton's gym, Strength Tech. Yeah, that was my first proper strongman comp, and that would have been 2015. Yeah, I started dabbling in powerlifting and strongman in 14, and then in 15 was when I started competing. So yeah, I entered a novice comp down there, and I think I come second to last. I loved it. Oh yeah, no, when I was queuing up for like registering, they kind of looked at me like, yeah, can I help? And I was like, yeah, I'm here for the strongman comp. And they were like, oh, okay, like who are you, sort of thing. And I'm standing there in all my CrossFit gear, looking like a proper wanker, and I was like literally half the size of everyone else there. And I think the first event was like heavy log, and I come like last in it. And then the second event was like a deadlift for reps, and having done loads of CrossFit, like that was a good event for me. And I ended up coming, I think I placed like third in that. And that was when people were like, who the fuck is this guy? And yeah, I was doing things I'd done a keg carry, I'd done a block press. There was stuff I hadn't even touched this. I didn't even know what it was. I just signed up and went down for it and just loved it. And then yeah, kind of just got the bug from there for strongman after that.
So 2015, nearly 10 years in the sport.
Yeah, so I've been training, I'd say properly training since 2012, 2013. So yeah, pretty much a decade of training. I say the first few years was CrossFit based, and then my coach was trying to push me into sort of powerlifting, because he said you could be a good CrossFitter, but I think your weight to power ratio is really good. Like, why don't you go down powerlifting route? And started doing that, but done a couple of comps, just didn't really feel it. I didn't like the atmosphere there. I didn't really feel like it was a friendly sport. And then when I tried my first strongman comp, it was the polar opposite to the powerlifting one. Everyone just wanted to help, offer you advice. Just made so many friends through strongman, and I was like, this is definitely like something I want to explore a bit more. And fortunately managed to get training off the bat with Terry Hollands and a load of guys down at the cell. It was like a little lockup he had on a farm. You know, very, very basic, just like literally a barn with loads of rusty old equipment, and whatever you wanted to do, that bit of equipment come out, you train it, put it away, get the next bit out. And that, yeah, so going back like nearly, 8 years ago.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to strongman being a friendly atmosphere. Like I've never known anything like it. I've never been much of a sporty person, to be honest. I think it's probably because I've not found the right sport. Like, I'm awful at football. I'm the worst at football. I tried CrossFit for a bit, but I think I lasted about 6 months or so, and it was just too much like hard work. I didn't mind the weightlifting, but it was all the WODs.
Disgusting.
And I think it was doing CrossFit. I knew that I liked to deadlift, but because of the way the place that I was at kind of ran it, like cycled exercises, so you do deadlift 1 week and then you might not do deadlift for another 5-6 weeks. And even back then I knew that if I wanted to progress deadlift, I definitely needed to do it more than once a month. So sort of just moved away from that. And then I think I found Rob Ward in some local newspaper cutting, because I think he came second or third at OSG one year, and that was the first time I ever learned that weight class strongman was a thing. And yeah, sort of went from there.
So that would have been 2017.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
First year they run it, because I somehow managed to qualify for that, and that was my first BNSF Brits win. And I'd been to the WHE Worlds that year and come second. So that's 2017 was a massive year for. That was when I felt like it was almost turning into something. You know, it wasn't just novice comps. We'd started doing a few lightweight. You know, because I was just in the novice stuff. I was just giving away too much weight. I was getting some podiums, but I was never getting that first place, and I was finishing outside the podium on some, and I was like, I'm doing really well, but I'm against guys who are 160 kilos, you know, literally double my body weight. Like, so when I started doing the lightweight stuff, it just sort of spiraled from there, and I was like, this is what I need to do now, just compete at a body weight.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your training, because obviously the conceit of this podcast is you're going to be sent off to a desert island with a well equipped gym, but a sound system that only holds 5 songs. What do you? All right. So when it comes to training, you're more of a lone wolf.
I don't know how that's like ended up happening, but it just seems to be the way. I mean, when I opened up my own gym for that year that we had it, that was probably like the loneliest training I've ever had. I think that's what made that Brits win last year even more special, because I think I had one session with a group of people, had Lucy Underdown and Sonny Nash come down to train, and that was like the only session I'd done with people. And that day the generator broke. We lost daylight. Just anything that could have gone wrong that day did, and it was like the one time I had some training partners, it just didn't go to plan.
I can empathise with things going wrong when you don't need them to go wrong. Believe me.
So yeah, I've kind of just over the years I've just got used to training on my own and not having to rely on partners. Like when I initially started training, I had a training partner called George Briley who ended up being a junior world powerlifting champ, and for his age, strong as fuck. Um, and he really pushed me. And even though he must be a good 8 years younger than me, yeah, really pushed me. And he's one of the reasons I'm probably as strong as I am, to be honest.
So you'd be all right with the idea of a desert island with a gym, training by yourself.
It would just be like normal. Yeah. I mean, at this gym where I'm at now, the lads will come round and check on me and have a little chat and a bit of banter. Normally, just telling me how short I am. Um, but yeah, um, the times that I train is around clients. So I'll train mainly clients in the early morning slots, maybe later in the morning. I'll get the odd one in the afternoon, and then again in the evening. So I train in between those, and it always seems to be when the gym's empty, which is lovely. But sometimes it can be a bit like, oh, I don't know one to talk to. Um, but yeah, no, I've got used to it now. So the desert island thing would be no problem.
So getting into music,
Yeah,
the songs that you sent me, I don't think, or at least for the most part, all aside from one, I don't think there could be more contrasting tastes.
yeah.
So like,
It's gonna throw some variety into the Spotify playlist for sure.
yeah, the algorithm's gonna go absolutely insane. So like, would you say that your primary sort of music that you listen to is like drum and bassy sort of stuff, like drum and bass? Or so I could spend ages talking to you about the differences between heavy metal, death metal, grindcore, gore grind, porno grind, that's a thing, power violence. Like, to you it probably, or not to you, to a lot of people, all those things would sound exactly the same.
Yep,
I
yeah,
imagine it's quite similar. Like drum and bass is like a blanket, but there's going to be niches within that.
yeah. I get so offended when people say, "Oh, drum and bass all sounds the same." I'm like, bro, there's about 12 different genres of drum and bass, like, and you can go from one extreme to the other, and it would sound so different. But I understand what they mean, because when I listen to metal, I like metal. Don't get me wrong, but and I can tell there's different styles, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what's what.
Yeah,
You know, some's a bit screamier than others. Some's got a bit more drums than others. But on the whole, I like all kinds of music. But if I was to pigeonhole myself, I would say I'm a junglist. I've got that tattooed across my rib. I think that was my second tattoo. I was well proud of that one. But yeah, I've been listening to jungle drum and bass since, I'm trying to think how old I would have been walking to school. That's like 90. Must have been started in the late. No, it'd be early 2000s, wouldn't it? Yeah, early 2000s was I probably discovered drum and bass, and then I had a lot of people that had been listening to it for longer, and they introduced me to jungle, which obviously is from like the 90s, and I must have listened to that religiously for years. So yeah, I'd say that's what I'm into. I got my first set of decks when I was 15, 16. Some new Mark belt drives. They were terrible, but they were cheap, and they made me realise that it's something that I wanted to pursue. And then I got my first pair of Technics, upgraded all my mixer and speakers, started buying like loads of vinyl. That's where I was headed with that. Just started trying to mix and then going out raving and getting on pirate radio stations, doing little warm up gigs in clubs for like big names. That was quite fun. But it got to a point where I was like, I don't think this is like a sustainable lifestyle. And I was like, it's not at my core. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think it was just something I'd done because all my mates were doing it, and it was like the in thing. And I was like, what do I want to do? And I chose gym. I think that was probably a wiser, healthier choice.
Yeah, you've still got your setup at home. So how often do you have a little play around?
Not enough. Once or twice a week, but I do like it every now and then to give it a proper blast, have a proper mix, record it, get all the little got like lasers and all sorts, like proper get in the mode.
So like when you're on your decks, like what do you just like kind of go by feel of like what song is gonna go or what track is gonna go after another,
Yeah,
or do you have like a set?
so yeah, like you saying about the genres of like metal, I've got mine laid out in like old school jungle, new school jungle, old school jump up, new school jump up. Then I've got like liquid commercial, dark rollers, techie. Because yeah, when you're mixing, sometimes some styles sometimes don't work too well together. Sometimes you just want to mix a certain style. Like you might just want to have a jungle mix. You might want to just have an old school D and B mix. Sometimes it's nice just to mix it up, like just chuck ones together. There's an art to it for sure, but sometimes it is just trial and error. Whack a couple of tunes together. If it works, great. If it doesn't, oh well. And then it's remembering which ones sounded good together, which ones flowed well together, and there's obviously different ways to mix. Beat matching is obviously like the main essence of it, but you can chop it, you can blend it, you can do a two-way, three-way, four-way mix. It's quite involved, but I've been doing it for like 20 years now, so it's one of those things I've just got used to doing. And I'm not brilliant at it. Do you know what I mean? That's why I didn't pursue it, but I can do it, and it's my way of switching off. I can just fully switch off from everything. Like there's no other
Yeah.
going on. Phones away, laptop shut. Yeah, it's just a great way to shut off from everything, man.
So in terms of this desert island gym where you've only got five tracks that can fit on the player in there, but you've picked, I'll get the genres right. You've picked a jungle song and a drum and bass song,
Yeah.
as well as like some other ones. Are you going to be satisfied listening to that one? Let's talk about it now. Roughest Gun Arc,
Yeah,
Top Cat and DJ Rap.
yeah.
Are you going to be all right listening to that one jungle tune for as long as you're on this island?
I reckon so. I reckon so. I mean, they're all at some point they're gonna get a bit like, oh my god, this song again. But that's why I wanted to choose a variety. I didn't want just like all drum and bass or all jungle or all hip hop or all metal. Like I thought, if I've done the workout and I'm just chilling, I don't want to listen to some proper jungle. Like I'm just put a little bit of hip hop on.
Yeah.
I was torn between the Ziggy Albert song and the John Butler Trio because they're like two bands that my wife introduced me to that are wicked. They're like chilled, happy songs. Do you know what I mean?
So what made this the jungle song that you chose? What is it about this one?
It's one of them tunes that's common in the rave, and it doesn't matter how many raves you've been to or what time of night it is it comes on. Everyone just goes mental for it, and it was from that kind of. For me, it was like the golden era of jungle. And DJ Rap, she's still around now, so she's still DJing. She was like a poster girl back in the day. But no, it's just a good tune, man. And obviously it's got loads of ragga vocals in it, which obviously jungle was born from, sort of from ragga, like ragga style.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it has big like Jamaican roots. I don't know if you know about like where drum and bass come from, but it was all London guys, tower blocks. It was the rave scene, old school. It all just sort of went into this like what would have been early jungle. I I think like acid house was around before that. Yeah, your old school stuff, and then that eventually turned into drum and bass. It almost got a little bit darker. It wasn't so happy and raggery. Drum and bass started getting a little bit darker, and then I got into it in like the early 2000s, and that was when it was definitely more D&B than jungle. It's changed a lot in the last 20 years. There's some stuff out at the moment that's awful, mate. Like, there's some genres of it I cannot get my head around. I always say it sounds like it's been made by a 14-year-old on his laptop in his bedroom, and then you find out that it has. That's why. I think it's since it's gone digital, because it's so accessible for people to do it, and they've all got these sound packs. They're all just turfing out tunes so quickly. Whereas back in the day, it would have all been analog. They would have had to plug in drum machines, and it would have taken them. They probably would have spent weeks on one track, yeah. And those tracks, like Andy C, like Quest and stuff like that, those tracks still bang now, and that to me is like proper drum and bass. Some stuff now that's released is terrible. I did have a song from 22 on the list for like a modern bit of drum and bass to show you, but I switched it out for a Slipknot tune because I was like, I need to get Slipknot in there somewhere.
Well, let's seeing as you mentioned Slipknot, let's talk about the Slipknot tune. You chose Eyeless, which is my favourite Slipknot song. That was a pivotal song for me.
That whole album.
But yeah, the Eyeless was on a free CD that came with an issue of Kerrang that my mate bought, and we used to sneak into the music room at lunchtimes at school and use the CD player. And the first time we heard this, it just blew our tiny minds. And there was some guys in our class that were into sort of drum and bassy sort of stuff, and we kind of showed them it because it's got the drum and bass.
It's that jungle sample at the start,
yeah. And they were kind of nodding their heads, and then the screaming guitar comes in, and they took the headphones off and were like, "No, we don't like it anymore."
Yeah, see, I was the opposite. I put it on and was like, because I was kind of exploring different types of music then. I knew I liked drum and bass, but I was open to other stuff. I was listening to a lot of UK hip hop, obviously. 90s hip hop was massive in America, and then one of my mates, obviously, I was friends with a few different groups at school. So I was skating at the time, like inline blading. So I was friends with a lot of what we would call chavs, but also grungers. The skaters, we kind of met in the middle. We were like a blend of the two, so we didn't really fit in with either side. So yeah, I had my chavvy mates, had my grunger mates, and they were like, "Oh, take this CD and listen to it." And it was that Slipknot album. And when that track came on, I was like, "Jungle." And then the heavy drums come in and all the screaming, and I was like, "Oh, this is sick!" And I was like, and then that just made me open up to the whole album because why not? And I listened to that album on repeat for months.
Yeah, me too. Right, you've been to lots of raves. Have you ever, or would you ever go see Slipknot live?
Oh, I've seen them 3 or 4 times. Yeah. So.
Oh, nice. Where at?
I did a lot of I did download in. Oh, I've got some notes here somewhere of dates. Must have been 2014 or 2015. They were headlining. Made sure I saw them. Limp Bizkit were there. Rammstein, Stone Sour.
Yeah.
At that time, I'd only recently heard of that band. Obviously, it's Corey Taylor's band. They were wicked. They were good, and there was loads of bands I'd never heard of before. So it was nice to just have a listen to some different types. And like you say, there were so many different types of metal there that weekend. I couldn't tell you what was what, but that was a fun weekend.
How close did you get when Slipknot were playing? Did you venture near the front?
Nah, we were the guys I was with had been there since like Thursday. I went up on the Sunday, and they were all kind of like done at that point, so we were just sort of chilling towards the back. But I did go to see Slipknot at one of their tours. I can't remember if it was in London or Birmingham. Korn was supporting them, so that was a wicked concert. Korn and then Slipknot, and we were right down the front for Slipknot. Yeah, the pit was interesting.
yeah. I keep promising myself that I'm done with mosh pits, but this festival I was at a couple of weeks ago, there was a band playing, and I couldn't help myself. I was right down the front. I don't know how many more mosh pits I've got in me, but I'll keep going. It's the strongman. The strongman training helps. So once my overhead press develops, I'll just be able to press people out of the way.
I was laughing when Luke Davis was saying that he gets in the mosh now and he's like 20 seconds in and he's done. I was laughing because I was thinking, oh, do you know what? I think I, 10 years on, I think I'd prefer being in the pit because I've got a bit more size to me now and a bit more training age. My fitness is pretty good. I was like, I reckon it'd be a bit of a laugh in there. But also, it's a different type of fitness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can be gym strong, and then there's guys I know that are like graft strong. Like work, like people that are in construction and they're working all day. Like I can't do that kind of graft. It fucks me up. I can't. I like to move something heavy from there to there and then be done. I don't want to move like something lightish from there to there 50 times in a day. Like that's not my kind of.
Yeah.
So I guess that mosh pit is going to be similar to that. It's just not what you're used to.
Yeah. So let's get back to your songs. You've sent me a drum and bass classic,
Yeah.
Dillinger, which is a name that I recognise.
He
I want to know.
Yeah, so that was the sort of time that I was just getting into it. So that track and lots of track around that was that sort of time when I was getting into it. So that track reminds me of when I first heard drum and bass, and it's a track that I've heard play at many different nights by many different DJs and heard it with so many different tunes, and it just works every time I hear that little. You just know it's gonna go off. But he's like one of my favourite producers. I've got so many of his tunes on. I've got actually like there's two of his vinyl on my wall as I'm like looking at it now. So yeah, he's great producer, man. He's got such a like a definitive sound, and he owns Valve Recordings, and there's a sound system called Valve Sound, and all his tracks were designed to be played on that sound system. So they just sound even better when you go to a. They've got the Valve Sound at that event, and he plays any of them tracks. The bass is just out of this world.
Yeah, I've got to say, out of Dillinger and DJ Rap, I think I preferred Dillinger because there's something about that distorted bass drum
Yeah, yeah.
that I just love. Because I dabble a little bit in sort of electronic music, but I lean more towards the kind of darker sounding stuff and the more like distorted sounding stuff.
All right, man. After the show, I'll link you some like dark stuff, some bits that I think you would enjoy.
Yeah, man. I mean, like in doing like I've only done what this will be episode 6. I've kind of listened to so much different stuff that I never would have necessarily chosen to listen to. So yeah, hit me up. I'm not the 25-year-old elitist that I once was.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be open with stuff, man.
Yeah. So you got your jungle, you got your metal, you got your drum and bass. Let's talk about your hip hop.
Yeah. So
Return of the Drifter by Jest.
yeah. So he was a guy that I saw play locally. We had a place called the Forum in Tunbridge Wells. It was actually like an old public toilet that they turned into like a little nightclub. But they had some really good acts and stuff there. They've had a lot of like metal nights down there. You're not from around this way, so you probably wouldn't have heard of it. But it was like back in the day, that was where everyone used to go.
No, I've definitely seen that venue on many a gig flyer.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like 15 minutes away from me, and I went to a night there that was it was just headlining, and it was supported by Kalashnikov. And I actually thought Kalashnikov had a like his whole stage presence and what he played was better than Jess, but Jest was like one of the first hip hop guys that I got into, and that's one of the tracks that I'm really bad with lyrics, but that's one track that I can, when it comes on, I'm actually like, oh, I know most of these lyrics. I can't remember lyrics for shit, honestly.
That's one of the good things about heavy metal is you can't understand what they're saying, so you just have to grunt along with the right syllables, and you can blag it pretty much.
That's why I like Rammstein, because I can just shout random German words that I don't know what they're talking about. And you see their music videos and you're like, oh god, is that what they're singing about? Fuck.
So yeah, is it what other sort of UK hip hop might you have picked?
So this guy's actually quite new. Like he's like a recent guy, Ocean Wisdom. I don't know if you've heard of him. He got signed by High Focus. So High Focus are like a UK group. Well, like a label that pushed some of the best guys, and they signed Ocean Wisdom, and he can rap so fast but so clearly. It's not like he's rapping at 100 mile an hour and you just can't hear what he's saying. You can hear every single word. I reckon he'd give Eminem and Harry Shotter a run for like most words spoken in a song. Like he's that quick. I wanted to put one of his tracks in there, but then I was just like, these other ones I'd rather hear. Obviously, you got Kalashnikov as well, and I remember people like Task Force, Mud Family. It just reminds me of the skating days, just like these are like the carefree days.
So are these all the songs we've talked about so far? Are these ones that you would or do listen to while you're training?
So yeah, this is when I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't actually listen to music when I train because I mean, when I had my own gym, I would just cycle through like liked songs on Spotify, and it could be absolutely anything from jazz to meditation music to Slipknot to UK hip hop to random stuff, and I would just like it would just play in the background, and I wouldn't even really notice it's on. And I found like I watched back PB videos, and it would be like Jackson 5, or it would be some random old like swing tune, and I'd be like, I didn't even realize it was playing. And when I've tried looking for a song, because I'm like, oh, I want a hype song. I'm looking, and I'm like, I don't actually know what I want, and then I'm waiting for like the drop to come in, and then I'm like, I just feel like it's just totally distracting. So yeah, so basically I'd say I'm not really like a hype music guy when it comes to training. Like the gym I train at the moment, they just put on random Spotify playlists, and it's rarely anything that I would really, personally put on. It's just music that's like suitable for like general public, EDM, pop, standard radio stuff, like what's current. But I just kind of blank it out now.
Yeah, I started off working at a Pure Gym, and the Pure Gym playlist is it's absolutely atrocious. But I would almost to sort of force myself when I would do my training there. I would almost force myself to not have headphones in because I forget where I picked it up from, but someone said that like don't get too attached to one song for like a 1 rep max, because if you're in a competition they're not going to put on your 1 rep max song for you to do your deadlift or whatever. So I've kind of been similar. Like I've got a couple of songs that when they come on I'll kind of switch on a little bit, but not so often these days do I actually seek to put one on.
Yeah, I get that.
So these are all ones that would accompany your training, but not necessarily like your performance wouldn't hinge on these songs being
No,
on.
like if that Ziggy Albert song come on, we haven't spoke about that one yet, have we?
No. We let's get onto it. Like Ziggy Albert's "Days in the Sun." You've said this is your chill song.
Yeah, it's just a chill, happy song. Hannah, my wife, introduced me to Ziggy Alberts and John Butler Trio. They're very similar sounding bands. Just really nice songs, just positive, upbeat, and yeah, there's not like tracks I don't enjoy from them, and it just reminds me of going on holiday and traveling and getting away from jungle and drum and bass and hip hop. That's more her wheelhouse, but yeah, that could be playing, and I could go for a one rep max. Like, I can't remember the last time I requested someone to put a song on because I was going for a certain lift. I don't know what you're like when you compete, but I almost blank out. I can hear the stuff going on, but I can't hear specific people shouting, and I don't notice people. I get in this kind of tunnel vision zone. I'm just thinking about what I need to do for the next 20 seconds or minute or however long the event is, and then I also still like have this thing where my blinkers are like still on after, like I'm still like focused, like events on, let's go, head down, and then I'm like switch off now, think about the next event. It's weird, it's like you don't live in that moment because you're thinking about the next event. It's a hard one to explain, really.
Yeah, I've become kind of, I don't know, maybe introspective or self-absorbed maybe. Like because I am not necessarily in a position where I'm going to be troubling for many top spots like at national competitions like England's or whatever. There's no point in me worrying about what other people are doing or have done, because I just need to focus on doing what I want to be able to do. Like I go in with certain goals for certain events, and whatever anybody else does, whatever, it's probably not going to make too much of a difference to where I'm going to end up on the table anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I definitely get the tunnel vision thing.
Yeah, so when you say about not worrying too much about other people, it's so true, because you can only do what you can do on a day. So like for this Brits coming up, for instance, in my head, like I thought, right, what's Dean? How are me and Dean going to do head to head on these events? And I'm like, he could probably have me there. I could probably have him there. He's probably got me here. And I'm like, at this one, for instance, I reckon he's potentially got me on 4 out of 6. But I was like, if it goes well, I could get him on that one, so it'd be 3 and 3. So I'm like, right, so we're pretty even. It all just depends on is he going to have a blinder? Am I going to have a blinder? And one of us going to have a shock in one event? Like, you just don't know. But what's going to make the difference is not really, doesn't really matter how me and him do against each other. It's where everyone else comes in between us, because he could beat me on 4 out of 6 events, but if I beat him on 2 events and he's not like right behind me, say he has like a bit of a shocker, if he's got 5 or 6 people in between that win, I've then got a bigger points gap. So I haven't got to beat him in as many events. I've just got to make sure there's people coming in between us when I do beat him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, fully.
Same thing with Flash. I've not beaten Flash at a strongman comp yet, which is like a little interesting fact.
No, I know you're. You've mentioned it before.
They're both beatable. I'm beatable. We're all beatable. It's just like it's going to be who is going to be the best on the day, and that's what's interesting about strongman, because you could have a comp one week and then the next week completely different events, and it'll be a completely different order of people. Unless you're winning every single event every single time and you're just dominating everything, anyone can be the strongest on the day, and that's what I like about the sport. It's not clear cut at all.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy weekend. I would like to take a holiday on a desert island in the sun. And this Ziggy Albert song, just getting back to it, like if there ever is a song where you can visualize yourself sat on the shore of a desert island while the sun is setting, it is definitely this song. So definitely one to check out if you do want something a bit chilled.
Yeah, and I say that it was close with John Butt the trio. So if anyone, if people listening have listened to that and they know about Ziggy Albert, definitely search John Butt the trio. Another really cool band.
But I asked you to pick one more song because we've all imagined ourselves walking out into a Giants live show to an arena of tens of thousands of people. What song would we choose? And you chose Salt Rock Dub.
Yeah, so this actually randomly popped up while I was driving, and I was like, that would be a cool entrance song, because it's got this like kind of like slow build up, and it's like champ 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 keeps getting said. I'm like, yeah, this is cool, and then just this heavy, that's a more modern drum and bass tune. I think that's from in the last few years, that tune. So that's a modern style drum and bass. And I thought it's just different, because a lot of entrance music, people go for the same sort of like WWE style or something a bit more obvious. So I was just trying to pick something that was a little bit different. I've got some songs on a playlist that I envisioned as like walkout songs that I listened to. Well, actually, when I went to OSG in 19, it's what I was listening to in the car on the way to onto the stadium. But yeah, that one I thought, no, I heard it and I was like, just doing it. I need to stop thinking about this walkout track and just choose one. And I was like, that drum and bass tune would get the crowd going, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I can see like you say, it starts off, builds up, and then when it kicks in, just the curtain bursts open. You're walking out, flag held aloft, squaring up to the Stoltmans.
Be at the kneecap, but yeah.
And I sent you a song.
Yeah, interesting.
I sent you a song. It was Pulse by Mad Capsule Markets. And I just sort of... I did think of other songs that I could send you after the fact. I was like, no, I've sent this one now. And they're a Japanese punk band that incorporate little bits of sort of drum and bass.
Yeah, as soon as it played, I was like, he's definitely gone. I'm gonna find him a real jungly metal tune, and it is. It's like classic, and I love that when the double drums come in. Yeah, it's a cool little track.
Yeah, I saw them at the Ozfest in like 2002. It was one of the first ones when they went back to Donington Park. And yeah, the Japanese singing Japanese, so it's kind of a similar thing to Rammstein. Like you can just shout along vaguely similar sounding syllables, but
yeah,
they've got some. That's like that was their big single, I suppose, as big as it could have been. But the whole album's kind of worth checking out. They got some good stuff on there. So
yeah, I flicked through a few of them when I was driving. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I was like, I'll have a see what else they got.
Yeah, they got some wacky ones as well.
Yeah. But the next one that come on was a bit wacky. I was like, okay. But no, I like hearing new stuff. That's it. One, it was actually on Tom Hulme's Instagram story. He had something playing in the background, and I was like, bruv, what is that tune? And he said, oh, it's a Wolf Totem by The Who. And I was like, never heard of them.
Oh.
Spotify'd it. And I was like, this band's sick. Mongolian folk rock. Never.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, for a second I thought you meant the British rock band The Who, but then I forgot about the other one.
Mongolian version.
Yeah,
like that. Again, just a band.
I've not checked them out, but it's good.
Oh yeah, if you've not checked them out, definitely look into that. No idea what they're singing about, but they use some of them old, like, I don't know what the vocals will be, but it sounds like almost tribal, like the throat. You might know what it's called.
Yeah, it's like the throat singing.
Yeah, yeah, Viking style. Like you imagine, like yeah, fires burning and sacrifices.
Cool. So we've talked about your songs. We talked about we've talked about a lot of stuff, and we've made it through so many technical difficulties. Thank you so much for your patience. But it's a busy second half of the year for you, isn't it? You've got Brits
Yep.
this coming weekend, and then after that you got the Pro Strongman League in September.
Yeah, so I got a last minute invite to that, and it's not. Yeah, it's not the sort of thing I can turn down or would want to turn down. So yeah, I'm gonna take. I keep saying I'm gonna take a week off, but I'll probably get a few days into that and be chomping at the bit to get back at training. Luckily, the events aren't too dissimilar to sort of Brits. You know, we got a basket deadlift, so it's another for reps, but it's going to be getting heavier, and it's going to be like a almost like card deadlift style. So I have to check if it's front handle or side handle, but that's not going to be too dissimilar to what I've been training. I just need to go and train specifically on like a car deadlift, which we've got at the gym, so that's no problem. There's an axle medley, which I can way prefer axle over log, so I've just got to just get back onto axle, which I'm hoping peaking for this log is going to help me with my axle overhead. I'm pretty confident with the axle clean, so yeah, it'll just be repping out. I think it's repping out 125 at the end, so that's going to be fun. There's a yoke sandbag medley. It's just slightly different. It's yoke sandbag.
So have you got any competitions after Pro Strongman League? Are you planning on anything, or is it just like, are you going to take another 2 years off and then come back and win another national title?
Just for reference, I never planned on taking this time off. The first year I had out was through a shoulder injury, and that was between 17 and 18, and I just got that sort of healed in time for that. Sorry, between 18 and 19, and that was just healed before that 19 win at Brits, and then the 2021 off season was all partly to a back injury, and then partly because of COVID. So wasn't really training, there wasn't really comps going on, and then I was hoping to get to that Brits in 21, but my back had gone again, so I was just like, I'm just gonna wait till next year and just go at it then. So, but yeah, I don't plan on taking time out. I want to be a bit more active, definitely. I've just applied for my local fire brigade, so training for that starts in September/November. They're very long. It's very slow. It's a bit of a drawn out process. So I think it's just going to be a case of waiting. I've told them that I'm going to America in September, so it shouldn't interfere with that. But it might be a case as soon as I'm back, I start training, or it could be that I start training in November. So yeah, it's just going to be. I'm just going to wait and see. I see how Brits goes, see how PSL goes, and just play it by ear.
Cool. Well, I mean, obviously we're recording this before Brits. I wish you all the luck in the world. I've predicted you for the podium. You know what position I've predicted you on, and like I'm quite happy for you to prove me wrong on that. And yeah, good luck at PSL as well.
I mean, I'd love to prove you wrong. I plan to prove you wrong, but I'd be happy with podium. Do you know what I mean? But then also, if you're not winning, you're losing. So
yeah, I mean, over the course of that weekend, there's about 25 different people that want to prove me wrong, and I'm here for it.
those predictions they're tough to pick, and I think we're going to see one of these new sort of younger lads. I think there could be a shocker coming through. It all depends on how everyone else does.
Yeah, completely.
At the end of the day, it's who's going to be consistent, who's always going to be in that. You've basically got to try and not finish out the top five. If you can stay within the top five for the most part, and then if you can get a win in there or two, that's going to really help. But you just have to be consistent, and ideally you need to be getting some top places in that top five. That's how you're going to win. You mess up badly, I think you're in for a bad time.
Yeah, well, we shall find out. Thank you very much for your time and for your patience, and I'll see you in a couple of days.
All good, thank you, bro.
So there we have it. That's episode 6 of Desert Island Riffs done, dusted, in the bank. As I say, great to catch up with Tommy. He did a lot for me in starting out in the sport, so it's great to see him still competing, still near the top of the game. I've had the privilege of competing against him once. Hope to compete against him again, because one of the best ways to progress in this sport is to go up against the best. And yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of that in 2024. Good luck to Tommy, obviously, in the upcoming competition, the Pro Strongman League. That's going to be a tough one, but I'll be watching the live stream of that. You'll be able to get that through ADL Pro. They stream all the shows. And while you're at it, why not catch up with the Britain's Strongest Man under 80 kilograms 2023 and the Chaos Classic under 90 kilograms. Fantastic competitions. All right, so music. Now, when I started doing this at the end of the podcast, I might have been kind of digging deep and trying to pick some obscure people. I'm not going to do that this week. My recommendation this week is one of the biggest names in heavy metal, one of the biggest British heavy metal bands. They've been going for 50 years and are still going strong. It's Judas Priest. I've been listening to a lot of Judas Priest recently. I often listen to Judas Priest and they are so good. They've got different styles, slightly different styles. I mean, it's all heavy metal, but you know, the 70s stuff, your British Steel, your Breaking the Law, which I think was used on quite a big ad campaign for something. I'm not sure. It was KFC, wasn't it? Breaking the Law sounds quite different to the late 80s, early 90s, sort of more straight up metal. But they are fantastic. They are still going live. They are still fantastic live. Rob Halford, the singer, is in his 70s. He can still hit those high notes. He can still scream those screams. Last time I saw them live, I think, was 2 years ago at Bloodstock Festival. And I will continue going to see them as often as I can, for as long as I can. And in fact, the name, Made of Metal, the name of my business, the name that I chose to go into business with, is taken directly from a Judas Priest song. It is taken from a song called Electric Eye off the Screaming for Vengeance album, and it's the start of the chorus. I'm made of metal, my circuits gleam, I am perpetual, I keep the country clean. And for some reason those three words, made of metal, have stuck with me for a very, very long time. I actually uncovered a college media studies project where I had to design a magazine front cover, and obviously I chose to design a heavy metal magazine, and the title I gave this heavy metal magazine was Made of Metal. So yeah, Judas Priest, one of my favourite bands of all time. Rob Halford, one of my favourite vocalists of all time. If I could meet one person and if I could meet Rob Halford and just give him a fist bump and say thank you, that'd be awesome. So if anyone's listening that has any connection to Rob Halford, hit me up. So yeah, listen to Judas Priest, enjoy Judas Priest. Let me know if you have enjoyed Judas Priest. I don't want to know if you didn't enjoy Judas Priest. You can keep that to yourself. And I will be back very soon with another episode of this podcast, Desert Island Riffs. Thank you so much for listening. I have been Danny from Made of Metal, aka Britain's Strongest Drummer, and at least one time have been called the voice of Lightweight Strongman, which I may use a little bit more. Cheers for listening.